Hi, I'm Ted from Everything Attachments. We're here today with our little BX. We had to wait a few days. As soon as we got done with the B with this plow yesterday or a few days ago, we really had some really hard rains. So even though it looks like the top of this is dried, it's actually quite wet. Peanut's gotten in here. He isn't sure if it's going to pull it or not today because it is still wet. So this is the same plow we were using on the B with all the same settings. We were able to adjust the coulter to where it's not into these center stabilizer bars, which can be a problem. We're at the limit on moving it back as far as it'll go and up far as it'll go. So we'll see how that works. We've got the gauge wheel on it, which is going to make it a lot easier to use on a tractor with an up or down lift, not having a position control lift. So this is the same plow that we use for the Everything Attachments plow that comes industrial yellow. We simply paint it orange to go with the orange tractors and the Land Shark series of attachments that we have. Unfortunately, our Land Shark decal's covered up by the gauge wheel there. And just for the gauge wheel, you can see the trouble we go to. Instead of using the plastic donuts, which come from China, and they've gotten so cheap every year that the centers crack in a couple years. The donut rots off of them. So whether you leave it inside or out, this steel wheel, it's made out of 3/8 pipe and a 3/8 center. That should be there forever. Now we're deep inside this ditch where we were really cutting it deep with that BX. This may go off to a rough start, but we'll get it right before we end. This is the way we like to do our videos, where we don't really know much more than you do, and we just take the good with the bad and run with it and make it work. Go ahead, Peanut. Let's see what it does. So he's in the actual, those tires, what we're going to have to offset the plow, which is good. That'll give the coulter even more room. Come on up. And so now what we're going to do, we made this bar here about 2 inches wider than what our compact plow used to be, simply to bring the arms out a little further so the coulter does have room to still work on this. So the offset is a little different in the size of the tractors between the B and the BX. That's why it's adjustable, and we're going to move the plow all the way over to this side to give us the right furrow to the moldboard room. Okay, so we were in the furrow with the way it was adjusted for the B, and just really nothing was right. The plow was exactly behind the rear tire, which wasn't going to be the right place. So there's a lot of adjustments on this plow, and I've learned one thing after adjusting everything on this plow. Borrowing somebody else's plow and having to do this and put it all back is probably, I'd have my own just to start with after having to adjust all this. Okay, and as you can see, this top link is running at a pretty good angle here. That's because we've brought, and that's one of the things you do to get your furrow right. So we've brought the plow over here. So now the plow's on a little bit of an angle. So normally what you would do is we put the pin to the back hole, that straightens the plow back out. Except in this case, it hits the linkage for the stabilizers on this BX. Now the linkages for centers used to be a lot shorter, but that wasn't as good because a lot of things didn't work right. And now that they've moved it this far back, we've got interference here. So we had to go back to the center hole, which it isn't perfect. It isn't gonna matter a lot that it's on a little bit of an angle. You know, if this was just going to go on my BX, I would just saw that ear off right there, put it in the back hole, and be able to use it on my tractor and not worry about it. But we've adjusted the whole plow over. You can see where the non-painted area is. So we've shifted the plow about 3 inches. We've shifted the whole center of the linkage over about 3 or 4 inches. And now we have the plow point right back in the middle of the plow. As you can see, this is on a little bit of an angle, which should have been corrected there, but it shouldn't matter a whole lot. It's just not perfect, and perfect is really the way we like to have it. We've retightened all the stabilizer linkages. Now that we've moved it over, we have quite a bit more room for our coulter there, so that should be fine. The gauge wheel is going to help a ton with the up and down lift, and so we're starting in a deep hole that was made by the B the other day, and we're just going to start back where we ended and see how it goes. We figure this first row is going to be pretty tough. We've got a set of ag tires for this that aren't on it. So these are wider and they're not going to be quite as aggressive, especially the one that's on the grass with it a little bit wet. It was just raining here just a second ago. So we'll see how it does. Peanut, jump on it. You might even hold the diff lock in just to keep the tire from spinning on the grass the first pass. Starting to rain a little bit now. So we've got it about right. It's still taking a pass, and we've got the furrow. We've got it in the furrow, but it looks like Peanut's having. Hit your diff lock, Peanut. Peanut, you're digging a hole. There we go. Peanut, hold on. Your coulter's not turning. Raise it up. All right. So after loosening everything up to adjust it over, we had left the coulter loose. I noticed it not turning, so we've retightened that back up. We're going to back up a few inches, drop it back in the hole. We think we've got it pretty well adjusted, and we're going to give it another try. As you can see, the bottom of the hitch of the BX in the furrow that was made by the bee yesterday is actually dragging, so none of that's helping with the pulling issues. Make sure you got your diff lock in because it's really liking to spin on that new grass, Peanut. Oh yeah, that's better. The coulter's working right. It's cutting the grass, making it easier to plow. The gauge wheel's working fully, keeping his depth correct. He's a little deep there. He's gonna have to lift up. I could go down a little bit with the gauge wheel, I guess. As you can see, when you're not using the gauge wheel and you're doing it manual, he's got about 4 different levels there in 10 feet just because he's having to manually adjust it. For a little tractor, which is considered to be a subcompact, which is just a little bit bigger than a real heavy-duty lawn and garden tractor. It is a full Category 1 limited hitch. It's able to plow like a big tractor. It's not quite as fast, but it's getting the job done. And there are a lot of BXs and this size of subcompact tractors sold in this industry for 2 reasons. They fit in the garage well. You can do just about anything with it at its own pace that you can a big tractor, and they don't cost as much. The problem is getting a specialized equipment to really fit and work right with these smaller tractors since they're fairly new. Go all the way down, Peanut. He's trying to keep it up just a little bit to make it plow a little easier. It's still going a full foot deep. So the other day when we had the plow adjusted, the problem we had was, unfortunately, we didn't have the right tools with us. And so on a B series, there's 2 notches for these holes, and they were in the back notch. When they're in the back notch, it won't let it go down as far or up as far, but it gives you more leverage. This only has 1 hole, so we're having to leave it there, but it is allowing us to get the plow all the way down and get the beam flat. Yesterday when we were here, we were running it with it pitched down just a hair because we didn't have the adjustments to let the lift arms down. Okay, so everything is fitting. He's got his lift all the way up. The coulter didn't hit anything, but it was close. Peanut's little butt won't hardly keep the seat sensor on because he doesn't weigh but about 130 pounds his whole life. Lucky him. And that's asking a lot of a little tractor, but in the end, you could have an absolute gorgeous garden as good as anyone with a larger tractor or whatever. It's still actually pointed down just a little bit according to the back gauge. I'm gonna raise the top link a little, lengthen the top link and drop the back of the plow down a little bit. And we need to actually go down with the coulter some because it's not cutting the grass in front of it. You see how jagged the edge is right there? It's because the coulter's not working at this time. I'm gonna lower it, as bad as I hate to. Okay, so the garden's getting a little bigger than I actually wanted, but we're gonna make a couple more passes because we keep having to make adjustments. We lowered the coulter where it's gonna cut better, leave a smoother edge. And the good thing is, if this is your plow and your tractor, you adjust all this one time and don't let anybody borrow it, and it'll always be perfect every time you go to it. Gauge wheel's running all the way down. It's running as deep as it's going to run. And Peanut says the garden's harder on that end. That's because that's only been done 1 year up there. We've lowered the plow down even more to make that bottom gauge work leveler. We've gotten our angles and all right. We should be pretty good right here, right off the bat. Now this is virgin ground here. This has never been plowed. He's going all the way down with it now. I may have taken too much pitch out of the front to get it all the way down. Every year you plow ground, it gets better. So a lot of people would like to have better instructions on how to plow, but past these videos and just trial and error, there's not much better you can do. Hey Peanuts, the bottom needs to come down a little bit more. I need to come back up just a little bit. Bump it, and I let it back down. I moved it against the nut here. All right, see how that does. This is definitely some good hard ground. It's as hard as it's going to get for around here, being that it's never been plowed before and it's got sod on top of it, which the sod, believe it or not, is your worst enemy. Now we're going to do the disc hair. These two thin rows are for 2 rows, 2 rows of okra, 2 rows of corn, because they grow so tall, they take up so much light if you put them on both sides of a small garden. So we're going to do those on strips. This grass is going to be the biggest enemy for the lightweight disc hair we brought. We're not sure how that'll work. Once you've done a garden for years, a disc hair will always work good, but in conditions like this, a rotavator we've got here, we could do it in one pass with no problem, or at least not have to, we would get a good job. It'll be interesting to see how the smallest disc hair we make does on this grass.